Hello everyone and welcome. This is my guide in how the guild I'm in defeats the water raid rift. Like the other raid rifts, this rift is designed to be done by 10 people, but you can bring up to 20 in the raid and all be eligible for the loot and the inscribed source stone. For the first few times you do this rift, it's probably advisable to bring a few extra people just to make things a little bit easier. We mainly use one tank for this rift, though we do bring a second one for the fourth phase. If the groups of minions are killing one tank too quickly, you can always use a second one for them and split the minions between them. All tanks will need a minimum of 100 toughness, and all DPS will need a minimum of 100 hit or focus, though obviously more is preferable. The first three phases of this rift are all pretty similar. They comprise of 3 groups of minions along with a little boss on each phase. We do these 3 phases with only one tank. We have him pull each group of minions and then AoE and DPS them down. When they are all dead, we move on to the boss. The minions are all pretty straightforward. DPS just need to be careful as some of the minions do cleave. The only minions to really watch out for are the casters in the third phase, as the lightning cloud AoE that they do can hit quite strongly. We try to DPS down these mobs first, interrupting them and moving them out of the AoE as necessary. The first mini-boss, which should be coming up in a second, is pretty straightforward. The tank just needs to pick him up and tank him facing away from the raid. The only thing to watch out for is when he casts Effervescence. This creates a waterfall effect that will increase the health, power, energy and mana regeneration of anyone standing in it. This does unfortunately affect the boss, and he will just cast it above where he is standing. So after he has cast it, the tank just needs to move him out of it and then everyone can continue DPSing him. Ranged DPS and healers are advised to go and stand in this waterfall for obviously the increased mana, energy and power regen. This then brings us to the second boss for the second phase. After having killed his 3 groups of trash before that, we now engage him, and he only really has one ability, and that he will randomly target someone and throw an axe at them, doing a reasonable amount of damage but not a huge amount, so healers just need to make sure they heal up the person that gets hit by the axe. Other than that, it's quite a simple, just DPS him down. And here we have the boss of the third phase. We've just killed his waves of minions, making sure that we kill the caster mobs first and making sure that we don't get killed by the AoE that they do. He is very similar to the boss from the second phase, except instead of throwing axes at people, he will just shoot at them with lightning. Similar thing of just heal up the people that get hit by it and just DPS him down, and he is pretty straightforward. He will also summon some small adds that you can see here. These just need to be DPS down quickly by some DPS before they can do too much damage to the healers. We now have the fourth phase. This is probably the trickiest phase in the whole rift. It involves the main boss and the 3 little bosses from the 3 phases earlier. We use 2 tanks here, one on the main boss himself and the other one on the boss from the first phase. The other 2 bosses will target random people with axes and lightning again, and the damage just needs to be healed up from these. We concentrate on the boss on the from the first phase first, DPSing him down. The tank for him in this phase needs to remember to move him out of the Effervescence he still casts in this phase. When he dies, and after every other one of the small bosses dies, the main boss will gain a shield and will grow in size. He will deal 50% more damage when this shield is up, but the shield only has about 20,000 health. So when the first boss dies, we switch to killing the shield and then go on to the second boss. When he dies, we go back to the shield and then kill the third boss before finally killing the main boss. The main boss in this phase should be tanked away from the raid, as he has a tail whip attack that will kill anyone near him when he does it, including any tanks. So you can see the emote coming up on the screen about him preparing to strike. At that point everyone needs to move away from the boss until he's finished casting Tail Whip before returning to DPSing him. This will mainly just be affecting the tank on this boss during this entire phase, but when changing from killing one of the adds to the shield, DPS need to be careful not to charge in just as his Tail Whip is casting, as we have seen several DPS manage to get themselves killed by doing that. When he dies, the 4th stage is then complete. We then have the 5th stage, which is pretty straightforward. It has 4 tidal foci with a group of minions around each one. Just have your tank the minions at the foci and AoE them down. Be careful of the AoE Stormcloud the casters do and try to kill them off first if this becomes a problem. The main thing to watch out for in this phase is when it finishes, when the last foci is dead rather than all the minions are dead. This can mean that several minions are still up when the boss spawns, so it's a good idea to pull them out of the rift at that time so you're not trying to fight them and the boss at the same time. Phase 6 is Tideweaver Archryon. He has 2 different phases. In the first phase he has 2 abilities. The first of these is Downpour. He will begin to cast it and everyone will get put into a bubble. When his cast ends, everyone will take damage depending on how many bubbles are touching theirs. Everyone needs to spread out as much as possible to minimise the raid damage, and it is quite possible if people are stacked up for your raid to wipe from this ability. His second ability is Mark of Archryon. This will debuff a raid member. They and everyone else must run to the middle, as the mark will do a set amount of damage split between all people in the small radius around the player. This can be seen affecting the player just on my left in the video. This means that if the player is on his own, he will almost certainly die from the amount of damage, whereas if you're raided all together at the boss, everyone will take quite a small amount of damage which is easily healed up by the healers. He will switch to his second phase after doing those abilities about 2 or 3 times each. He grows to about double his size in this phase, and the only real ability you need to worry about is when he begins to cast Water Jet. This targets a random raid member and does a reasonable amount of channel damage to them. Healers need to be awake to start healing this person as quickly as possible. He will then return to his first phase and begin casting Downpour and Mark again. He has a very soft DPS timer, as his cast of Downpour will get shorter and shorter as the fight progresses. This can be a problem if you have too much melee, as the very quick cast time can kill them and probably the tank before they get a chance to react. It should not really get to the point where it is that quick a cast, as if you've managed to do the other stages in the time, you should have sufficient DPS to down him before the timer shrinks too much. Once the boss is down, the rift is complete. Thank you for watching this video. I've been Zero Override and hope you have success in defeating this rift.